A crisp autumn breeze whispered through the park, carrying the faint scent of roasted chestnuts and distant laughter. A little girl stood at the edge of a fountain, her tiny fingers clutching a worn notebook, eyes wide with quiet determination. She had watched men in suits come and go all her life, giants of the city who seemed untouchable, and yet today, she had chosen one to approach. Her heart thumped like a drum of anticipation as she imagined a single impossible question escaping her lips. A question that could either be laughed away or ignite a spark she didn't yet understand. Somewhere beyond the fountain's shimmer, a tall figure in a tailored coat paused, unaware that his life was about to tilt unexpectedly. His solitude about to be challenged by a fragile voice carrying an audacious hope. The little girl opened her mouth, voice small but unwavering. A single question, trembling in its simplicity, yet bold enough to pierce Ethan's practiced composure. For a heartbeat, the park seemed to still, as if the city itself were holding its breath. He stared down at her, his mind a whirl of disbelief, amusement, and something he hadn't felt in years, something fragile, yet strangely familiar. This tiny stranger, with nothing but a notebook and earnest eyes, had the audacity to speak of roles he had long abandoned, to ask for a connection that had eluded him in boardrooms, mansions, and gala events. And in that pause, something inside him loosened, a dormant warmth, tugging at a corner of his heart he didn't realize was so empty. Ethan's lips twitched, half smile, half skeptical, as if considering whether to humbly reject a child's audacity or play along with the impossible. She held her gaze unwavering, radiating a quiet insistence that made the city's chaos seem distant, irrelevant. For a man accustomed to commanding empires, deals, and fortunes, this tiny human challenge felt stranger than any boardroom negotiation. He felt a curious pull, a tugging at a long-forgotten place in his chest, a memory of laughter, of childhood he had never had someone to share. And then, quietly, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. Not yet fully committing, but enough to ignite a spark of possibility. The girl's eyes lit up with a sudden gleam, a mixture of triumph and disbelief, as if she had just unlocked a secret passage in the world. She tugged gently at his sleeve, whispering her next request with a voice so tender it might have shattered glass had it been louder. "Will you be my dad, just for today?" Around them, life resumed its hurried pace, but the pause between them remained sacred, charged with the weight of possibilities neither had anticipated. In that moment, Ethan saw himself reflected in her small but resolute frame. A life unshared, a joy unclaimed, a connection that seemed at once impossible and inevitable. He exhaled slowly, feeling an unfamiliar warmth seep into his chest, a mix of amusement, curiosity, and cautious hope. "All right," he murmured, voice low, carrying a gravity unusual for such a simple sentence. The girl's smile erupted like sunlight through clouds, laughter spilling over the fountain's edge, leaves dancing around her as if celebrating this improbable agreement. Neither knew how the day would unfold, what lessons would be learned, or what memories would be etched into the corners of their hearts. But in that fleeting instant, the world seemed a little softer, a little fuller, and for the first time in years, a billionaire and a 7-year-old girl shared something priceless. A promise born entirely of courage and trust. The city hummed around them as they stepped out from the park, a world of honking cars, street vendors, and hurried footsteps stretching into every direction. The little girl's tiny hand gripped his suit jacket, her enthusiasm radiating a quiet insistence that he follow her lead. Every glance at her wide, curious eyes reminded him of a childhood hid long buried beneath skyscrapers and boardroom meetings. For the first time in years, he felt unmoored, willingly pulled out of the meticulous rhythm of his life by a 7-year-old girl whose courage dwarfed the bustling metropolis. She led him to a small ice cream shop tucked between towering office buildings, her excitement contagious, while he hesitated, unsure how to navigate this playful world he had avoided for so long. As she ordered her favorite, strawberry with rainbow sprinkles, he noticed the way her eyes sparkled at each detail. The jars of candy, the silver tongs, the swirl of flavors. A simple cone became a lesson in presence, a reminder that even billionaires can forget the sweetness in life's small pleasures. Sitting outside with their cones, she animatedly recounted stories from her notebook. Imaginary adventures, daring rescues, and fantastical worlds where she was the hero. He listened, fascinated, feeling the weight of his usual seriousness lift, replaced with laughter he hadn't allowed himself in years. The city's noise faded behind them, leaving only the rhythm of shared joy and curiosity. In that moment, he realized being dad for a day was not about authority, but about presence, and presence could change everything. After finishing their ice cream, she insisted on showing him a nearby playground, a world of slides, swings, and laughter untainted by deadlines. He hesitated at first, the polished image of a businessman wary of appearing foolish. Yet as he watched her race toward the swings, tiny feet kicking at the air, something stirred. A longing he didn't recognize at first. By the time he gingerly pushed her on a swing, the awkwardness melted, replaced with exhilaration. Gravity, laughter, and trust had become a bridge across two worlds. As the sun dipped lower, painting the city in amber hues, she tugged him toward a small pond, insisting they feed the ducks together. He knelt beside her, tossing breadcrumbs, and felt a strange serenity wash over him. She laughed at the ducks' eager quacks, and he laughed too, genuinely, without pretense. For the first time, wealth, status, and obligations melted away, leaving only a simple truth. Connection, even fleeting, could heal wounds thought permanent. And somewhere between quacks and giggles, he understood that this day, this impossible request, was transforming them both. The afternoon light slanted sharply between the skyscrapers, casting long shadows over the quiet streets. The little girl tugged excitedly at his sleeve, pointing toward a small art studio she had spotted earlier. He hesitated, glancing at his watch, feeling the pull of emails, meetings, and obligations he couldn't abandon. She noticed the flicker of unease, her smile faltering for the first time that day. The weight of the world pressed against the fragile bubble they had created, reminding him, and her, that differences were more than appearances. Yet, curiosity battled reluctance, and he finally nodded, willing to risk awkwardness for a chance at connection. Inside the studio, canvases leaned against every wall, bright splashes of color clashing with Ethan's usual grayscale world. The little girl dived into the paints with abandon. Fingers streaked with red and blue, giggling as she declared each stroke a masterpiece. He watched, stiff at first, uncomfortable with mess and unpredictability, yet the joy radiating from her tiny frame chipped away at his rigidity. Slowly, he reached for a brush, unsure where to begin, fumbling with colors he had never considered. Their worlds collided in a riot of laughter and spilled paint, chaos and warmth intertwining. A sudden knock at the door jolted them both, an assistant peeking in, tablet in hand, voice brisk. A reminder of calls, appointments, and deadlines waiting like a tide outside their bubble. The little girl froze, sensing tension in the air, her hand gripping his sleeve tightly. He exhaled, torn between returning to his world of order and staying in this unplanned, chaotic, joyful moment. For the first time, the veneer of control he had mastered began to crack, revealing a vulnerability he rarely admitted, even to himself. He knelt beside her, brushing a streak of blue from her cheek with the corner of his sleeve. A gesture so tender it surprised even him. "We'll finish this later," he murmured. Voice low and steady, she nodded, relief flooding her face, and the tension eased like a tide receding. He realized that even amid responsibilities, moments of connection were fleeting treasures, impossible to schedule but vital to grasp. In that small studio, Laughter and trust had begun to outweigh power and obligation. By the time they left the studio, the sky had deepened into amber and violet, casting long shadows across the streets. She held his hand tightly, skipping ahead and glancing back, ensuring he followed. He felt an unexpected warmth at the gesture, a realization settling in. Control, wealth, and meticulous schedules could never replicate the joy of being present for someone small, trusting, and unconditionally brave. The day was still young, yet already it had begun to rewrite the rules of his life. The little girl tugged him toward a crowded street market, her eyes wide with excitement at every colorful stall. He followed, cautiously navigating the throng of people, feeling the weight of his polished shoes on cobblestones that seemed foreign beneath him. She darted ahead, stopping abruptly at a toy stand, only to frown when the price tag proved too high. He offered a gentle smile, prepared to pay, but she shook her head fiercely, insisting some things were meant to be earned, not bought. A subtle clash of worlds rippled between them. The innocence of a child's values meeting the pragmatism of a billionaire. They wandered to a quiet alley lined with street art, and she began pointing at murals with wide-eyed wonder, explaining elaborate stories about each scene. He attempted to match her imagination but misinterpreted her gestures, accidentally knocking over a small display of painted bottles. Her face fell, and a sharp silence descended. For the first time, she looked at him with disappointment rather than curiosity. The city's hum seemed louder now, echoing their awkward misstep, reminding him that even a day filled with laughter could contain moments of tension and misunderstanding. He knelt down, speaking softly, attempting to explain his mistake. Her lips trembled as she tried to mask frustration, but the flicker of hurt was unmistakable. He realized in that quiet, painted alley that connection demanded more than attention. It required patience, humility, and understanding. For a man used to commanding respect, admitting fault to a 7-year-old was unfamiliar terrain. Yet he did it, his voice steady, his gaze sincere. Slowly, her tension eased, replaced by cautious trust. She extended her tiny hand toward him, a tentative gesture, and he clasped it, squeezing gently. Together they began to explore the alley again, this time moving slower, savoring the murals and the stories she wove around them. Each laugh and shared observation became a bridge, rebuilding trust from the fragile pieces of misunderstanding. He realized that guiding her, even for a single day, was as much about listening as leading, and that sometimes the smallest lessons carried the deepest truths. As evening approached, they paused at the top of a small stairway overlooking the city. The skyline bathed in the first glow of twilight. She leaned on him slightly, tiny shoulder against his side, and he felt the profound weight of responsibility and privilege settling warmly in his chest. For all the laughter, missteps, and playful arguments, this day had become more than a whim. It had become a lesson in trust, patience, and the power of presence. The city spread below them, vibrant and indifferent, but in that quiet moment, the world felt profoundly intimate, as if it had paused just for them. The first stars blinked above the city, scattered like silver confetti against the deepening twilight. She tugged at his hand, guiding him toward a quiet rooftop garden she had discovered. Flowers swayed gently in the evening breeze, their scent soft and intoxicating. He inhaled deeply, unused to such quiet, such intimacy. She began pointing out constellations with a tiny finger, telling stories of heroes and dragons, of wishes that could bend the world. For the first time, he felt the weight of adulthood lift, replaced by a rare, simple wonder that only a child could inspire. She challenged him to a simple game of chasing fireflies, their laughter echoing across the rooftop. He stumbled at first, clumsy in unfamiliar shoes, but she cheered him on, her joy unfiltered and pure. In the flickering light of tiny, glowing wings, he remembered childhood evenings he had long forgotten, running barefoot through gardens that no longer existed in his life. Every laugh, every sprint, Every shared gasp of excitement became a tether, pulling him from isolation into the warmth of presence. Exhausted but exhilarated, they collapsed onto a blanket she had brought from home, the city lights sparkling beneath them like distant stars. She leaned against him, whispering her secrets, stories of school, dreams, and fears. He listened, letting her words seep in, feeling a tenderness he hadn't allowed himself in decades. In the quiet glow of twilight, he realized the truth. Love and presence were not transactional or earned. They were given freely, and in that giving, he found a joy deeper than any fortune he had amassed. She suddenly pointed to a neglected fountain at the edge of the garden, daring him to make a wish. He hesitated, unused to frivolity, but her grin was irresistible. Closing his eyes, he tossed a coin into the water, letting a long-buried hope escape into the night. She laughed, clapping her small hands, and he laughed too, heart lighter than it had been in decades. That single act, a simple wish, became a bridge between who he had been and who he could still be. A man capable of laughter, wonder, and unguarded love. As night fully embraced the city, they lay side by side, hands entwined, gazing at the stars. The little girl whispered, "Thank you for being my dad today." And he felt an ache of tenderness that words could not contain. A single day had transformed them both, leaving footprints in memory far deeper than any material gift could. And as the city slept, a billionaire and a 7-year-old girl shared a moment suspended in time. A perfect, fleeting bond that would ripple into the rest of their lives, quietly, powerfully, and irrevocably. Morning sunlight filtered through the tall city windows, casting warm patterns across the penthouse living room. She bounced on a plush rug, animatedly recounting every detail of the rooftop adventure, while he sat on a low couch, silver-streaked hair tousled, navy suit jacket draped loosely over the armrest. For the first time in years, he listened without judgment, laughter spilling freely, responding with playful questions and exaggerated reactions. A fragile trust had formed, one built not on authority, but on shared wonder and the courage to be vulnerable. She noticed a framed photo on a nearby shelf, a younger version of him, alone in a garden, eyes distant. She asked quietly why he looked so serious, and he hesitated. For the first time, words faltered. His voice softened as he spoke of childhood dreams left behind, of loneliness hidden beneath wealth and acclaim. She listened, small hand finding his, grounding him in the present. Vulnerability, once foreign to him, became a bridge, a lesson that even the strongest hearts could find solace in the unlikeliest of companions. Later, they sat on the balcony, sipping cocoa as city life surged below. She chattered about her favorite books, daring him to make up endings for stories she loved. He hesitated at first, then slowly, hesitantly, began spinning imaginative tales, his normally precise mind surrendering to creativity. Each laugh they shared strengthened a bond he had never imagined possible. A delicate, magical connection between experience and innocence, wisdom and wonder. She suddenly asked, softly, "Will you remember me after today?" His chest tightened. Memories of fleeting connections and missed opportunities flooded him. Yet, in the quiet sincerity of her gaze, he found clarity. "Yes," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "I will." The words were more than promise. They were a transformation. A billionaire, accustomed to controlling outcomes, had surrendered to the profound simplicity of care, realizing that some treasures were priceless because they could not be bought. As afternoon approached, they returned to the park where it had all begun. She ran ahead, then turned, waving for him to follow. He smiled, his heart light, and jogged after her, laughing freely. The city, indifferent to billions and playgrounds alike, became a canvas for moments of trust, laughter, and shared vulnerability. In her small, determined presence, he had rediscovered joy, wonder, and the quiet power of love freely given. For both of them, the day had become unforgettable, and the bond forged would ripple beyond a single moment, quietly reshaping the heart. The morning sun bathed the city in golden light as they returned to the park, where leaves still rustled in the gentle breeze. She skipped ahead, turning back to make sure he was following. He smiled, silver-streaked hair catching the light, feeling a weight lift from his chest. Every step reminded him that this day had altered something profound. Not wealth or power, but the quiet understanding that presence, care, and small acts of love could leave a legacy far greater than any fortune. They stopped at the fountain, the place where their day had begun, and she climbed onto the edge with a triumphant grin. He knelt beside her, voice soft, asking, "Shall we make this day one to remember?" She nodded eagerly, eyes bright, and together they threw pebbles into the water, watching the ripples expand. Each circle symbolized a promise, a memory etched not in gold, but in laughter. Trust and shared moments that would last a lifetime. As the afternoon waned, they shared ice cream one last time, sitting on a park bench in comfortable silence. She nibbled happily while he watched, savoring the simplicity of the moment. He realized that connection could exist in silence as powerfully as in words, that presence alone could heal and transform. The world carried on around them, but for a billionaire and a 7-year-old girl, time had slowed to a perfect, unhurried rhythm of trust, joy, and belonging. Before leaving, she hugged him tightly, small arms encircling his waist. "Will you come again?" she whispered. He knelt, eyes glistening, returning the embrace. "Yes," he said, "as many times as you want." In that simple exchange, promises of continuity, care, and unspoken love passed between them. The city around them seemed to glow brighter, witness to a bond that transcended wealth, status, or circumstance. A bond built purely on courage, trust, and the daring heart of a little girl. As they walked away from the fountain, hand in hand, the city hummed with its usual rhythm, unaware of the transformation that had taken place. Yet for Ethan, a lifetime of solitude had been gently reshaped by a single day of courage, wonder, and unconditional trust. And for the little girl, a dream of having a dad, even for a day, had been realized in a way far richer than she had imagined. The day ended not with grand gestures, but with small, perfect moments of love and connection that would echo forever in hearts and memory.